For most students in high school, a good education means getting into college and graduating, but for many students in the city, higher standards also mean tougher hurdles. To help those students move ahead to college and make it to the finish, there's an organization called Bottom Line. To tell us about its work is our guest from Bottom Line, the Success Program Director, Justin Strasberger. Thank you very much for being with us, Justin.
Thanks for having me.
First of all, this is a program that works with students who are just starting college, but also students who are headed there. Let's say they're still in their last year or two of high school, right?
Yeah, so our program has two main components, our Access and Success programs. The Access program helps students who are seniors in high school navigate the process of applying to college, getting in. And the Success program helps students for up to 6 years or until they graduate, providing them wraparound support to ensure that they stay on track to a college degree.
Well, tell me about the students you work with, because on the one hand, I think they have it together enough that they're headed to college, but you know, when you're talking about someone who's 16 or 17 years old, they might not really know exactly what they want to do in their future.
Absolutely, yeah. So there's a number of different hurdles. You know, the students we work with are low income and first generations, so that disadvantages them in a number of different ways. When you don't have a parent who's been through the process, that's one less person you could count on to help you figure out how to navigate the very complicated process of applying to college, applying for financial aid, making a decision. That's a very important decision to make of which college to attend. And then when you're in college, having that support system to fall back on of someone who's gone through it before. Without that, students are up against it, really.
Well, I think part of the problem is that even if you do have an idea of what you want to do 4 or 5 years later, you've got to pick the right college and have a sense of what's possible, too.
Absolutely. Yeah, we spend a lot of time with students helping them early on in the access process make their college list. Because we want to spend that time then, because that upfront time really pays off down the road, because students are left with options that they've gotten into a number of schools that are a good fit for them and that they can afford. And that's really what it comes down to in this day and age, is it's really no longer about the dream college. You know, in a perfect world, students get to go to their dream college, they can afford it, it's a perfect fit. It comes down to a smart consumer buying decision more than anything, and that's what we try and help our students and families to understand, is that there are lots of great affordable options for students, but if they can't figure out a plan for how they're going to pay for it for not just this first year, but for the 4 years, maybe even 5 or 6 years that it takes students to graduate these days, that's not going to be an effective option. And that's what leads to a lot of these students who don't have the kind of support that we're able to provide, leads to them not persisting through. You know, financial issues are a large part of the reason why a lot of these students are dropping out.
Now, I know this isn't a majority necessarily, but there's probably a significant number of students, even from low-income families, who should aim high. They can get generous scholarships, but if you don't aim, you don't get there.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, we're not trying to help our students just settle. You know, part of that list-making process is to have a broad range. We do try to be realistic with our students, but that's certainly an issue as well, is these population of students often don't aim high enough. And so part of our goal there is to help students understand, no. You see that price tag of a school like BU, which we're sitting right next to, and that price tag scares a student off. And what they don't realize is BU has very generous scholarship opportunities for Boston residents. And so if a Boston student gets into BU, that price tag that they're actually paying is not the $50,000, $60,000 a year that they just see on the site. It's significantly less because BU is coming to the table. It may be even less than some of the state options for them.
Even Harvard will come to the table for
absolutely,
some people.
absolutely. So there are a lot of great options. It's not just the state options or the schools with the lower price tag. It really comes down to net price, which is, you know, where students are left after they get the aid from schools. And so that's what when we talk about affordability, we talk about the percent of need that the schools are willing to meet for a student.
Now, when I hear about kids who get into good colleges and they surprise you, someone would always say to me, well, their mother must have helped them with the essay or something. No, I'm not surprised if the parents help with the essays here. You help with the essays, so what does that usually involve?
Yeah, so we do our best with essays. It can be tough, right? You know, you want to make the student have the best possible chance, but you also don't want to set the student up for failure. And if we're sitting there helping changing all this wording and breaking out our thesaurus to make the student sound a lot better than they are academically, you run the risk of the student going to a school that is above their level academically, and they're going to fail that way. And so what we do with essays is we do our best to make them coherent, help the student develop cogent thoughts and a well thought out process, a good topic from the very beginning. And then we will help them edit it, but we stay away from changing word choice, from rearranging sentence structure to make it sound more elevated, because we really want it to be the student's voice, and that's very important. And the other thing is a lot of schools these days have other ways that they're going to be able to figure this out. They have additional essays. They ask the student to follow up and do a writing test before they get to school for placement purposes, and they're going to figure out at some point or another what the student's true writing level is, and if we're doing a student a disservice if we're over-editing it, I think.
Of course, the other part of essays is not even about writing as much as you say what you are, you define your character, and I guess a lot of these kids have as much character as you could want in a college application pool, but sometimes they don't realize it.
Yeah, so that's the big part we play with the essay, is coming up with that topic. Students come in and say, I have no idea what I want to write about. And that's where we're able to step in and say, all right, well, let's think back on it. Let's put a timeline of your life. And this is an exercise we often do, where we just put a line and say, all right, think back to everything from the first point you can remember to today. Just start putting on what you see as significant moments in your life. And a lot of what our counselors are able to do is help students to make those connections, to see the growth that they've had, and realize that how these experiences they've been through can turn into a very powerful and compelling college essay. We have an amazing group of students who have, in some ways, more topics that they can write about than students from more privileged backgrounds, because our students have been through a lot of adversity. But it's helping them feel comfortable talking about that. It's helping them feel comfortable making those connections and demonstrating that growth, which is really what colleges want to see. They want to see that you've learned something through an experience, that you have this potential for future learning.
Well, talking about the future here, what about the college students, the new college students that you're trying to help as well? They face some challenges, so what do you do with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's a number of different reasons. There's sort of three big categories for where a student could drop out, academic, financial, and life. And so, with academic, you're talking about lack of preparedness for college level courses. Financially, you're really talking about that inability to afford. And life is just any traumatic situations that could come up, with death in the family and unexpected pregnancy. What Bottom Line hopes to do is, by providing a one-on-one counselor support system, the counselors are going on campus, they're meeting with the student periodically. When they're not in person, they're following up by phone, by email, Facebook. They're just a constant presence year-round, so even when school isn't in session. And what we hope to do there is provide the student with a caring adult who they know they can rely on. And so when a situation does come up, we're someone they can call. We work to help connect them to their resources on campus, to resources in the community. We do a lot of skill building work ourselves, so we may help a student. We help all of our first years, for example, first meeting on campus, help them understand their syllabi, understand the elements of time management that they're going to need now that they're a college student. So we try and be proactive, but also reactive to the many different things that can come up in their lives. So that's really what we're doing in that success program, and it's one-on-one support for up to 6 years or until they're graduating. So it's very consistent. Any
idea yet in all the years that Bottom Line has been operating, how well it's done? Any idea about success rates?
Yeah. So historically, our graduation rate, our 6-year graduation rate, which is the way colleges tend to report that, is 76%, which, considering working with low-income first-generation students, is incredibly high. Depending on what source you're looking at, it's probably about twice the national rate for those types of students. That's historic, though, from our very beginnings, which is back in 1997. Over the last several years, we've made a lot of revamps to our curriculum. We've developed a better curriculum approach. We've developed models that have increased that. And for the class of 2008, which is the most recent class that we have the 6-year graduation rate data for, that's 84%. So I mentioned that because at 76, historically, it's consistently getting better. And our goal organizationally is that 80% threshold for our students to be graduating within 6 years.
One thing I imagine these college students must have as a challenge is, especially if they're commuting, and it doesn't matter whether they're commuting to a community college or to Harvard, they might not plug in as well with the community life of the college. They go in for a class, they breeze out, they go home, or they go to a part-time job, and I guess they need more of an anchor.
Yeah, we do a lot of work with that. We have a ton of commuter students. UMass Boston and Suffolk are 2 schools that we work with, where the vast majority of the students attending those schools are commuters for our students. We do a lot of work to try and get them to stay on campus. They're going to have a much better chance of being successful academically if they're not going home, where all of a sudden there's all these distractions potentially of family responsibilities or jobs or things like that. If they stay on campus, go to the library, try and get their work done there, they're going to have better success rates. And we do a lot of work to try and connect them academically, but also socially, try and get them to engage in clubs. I mentioned academics, aid, and life. There's that fourth category that really will represent success through graduation, that's employment. And to be successful at graduation from an employability standpoint, students need to start getting involved. They need to start building that resume, getting those leadership opportunities. And so we really push students to engage in their college community. And one thing I always tell students is there are all these resources on campus. You're paying for it. It's coming out of your tuition and fees. Take advantage of it. Take advantage of the student activities, the academic support, the social support, all of it.
And that could increase their motivation, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you mentioned if any high school student or maybe even a new college student want to take advantage of your help here, what's the best way for them to start?
Yeah, so we have a website, www.bottomline.org. We're currently accepting applications for students who are rising seniors in high school, so there's students finishing up their junior year. If you'd like support with our College Access program, which again helps students get into college. We're also accepting applications from students who are graduating from high school this year, who are enrolling for the first time as college students in the fall from many neighborhoods in Boston. We're accepting applications for that directly into our Success program. So again, you can find that application, more information at our website.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Justin Strasberger from Bottom Line. We'll have more news in just a moment.